My name is Bill Herron. I am a corporate executive, salesperson. I raise capital for a private equity fund. I've been in the financial field for 30 plus years. I'm also a licensed therapist. I've had my license for 14 years. I work with pretty much every kind of demographic. I have a weekends and weekday evening practice. And I am, like yourself, a researcher on self. And I've been studying relationships for 24 years, put a book out at the end of last year called Waking Up Marriage, Finding Truth in Your Partnership.
Bill, my brother, welcome to the Jesse T Show.
Thank you so much for having me. My wife says, I am incapable of small talk. So I'm in the right spot.
Same. And you know, I already know this is going to be multiple conversations, and we're going to do some great things outside of this podcast together. So give us a little context. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, thanks so much. So I've been in the financial field really on and off since Reagan was in office, late 80s. I started in 86. After about 10 and a half years, Jess, I had a little bit of a kind of opening. I started meditating. I quit the job. I traveled. I've been to 46 countries. I came back. I got a master's in social work. And since 2007, I've been full-time back in the financial field, but I'm also a licensed therapist, which means in the evenings, weekday evenings and weekends, I am counseling folks, holding space for them. But my day job is sales. And, people laugh, like sales and therapy I don't see how they relate. It's all about relationships, as you know.
Yes.
And so it's all about developing a trust through vulnerability. In the professional world, it's a different tone and texture to vulnerability, but we're establishing a relationship. If I have a good product, I've got a really good product now. I work for a family office. And then in the evening, in the weekends, when I'm working with folks that are going through a rough time, there's very little I haven't been through. I've been meditating for 25 years. I've been on my it's a continual journey. I feel like I'm a researcher on relationships, which is really just a researcher. I'm a scientist of self, because all a relationship is you and I are in a relationship. You're in a relationship with your grandfather, your grandmother, whatever it is. Other people are going to just kick up more of Jess, kick up more of Bill. That's all it is. It's the word relationship, Jess, comes from Latin relatus, which means to carry back. So a relationship, what it does is my wife says something, she acts dismissive, she gives me her hairy eyeball. It kicks up something in me, kicks up that 14-year-old, kicks up that 8-year-old. I feel less than, it's kicking up my self-worth. It's not her fault. I take that emotion, I carry it back to my cave. As Carl Jung says, all the treasures of life are in the cave, in self. I find out what that is. Oh, that's my 8-year-old watching my mom be dismissive of my dad. Oh, that's my 14-year-old being dropped like a hot rock. Oh, here's the insight. Now I carry that insight back to the altar of the relationship. Could be with my boss, could be my daughter, whatever it is. I've carried that insight back. And if that other person's willing to develop more relationship through that vulnerability, I share that and the relationship goes deeper. Yes. It's only through vulnerability, and it's only through self does a relationship move. I do that in the business world. It's a different tone to it. I'm not going to share my deepest longings, but it's the exact same thing. I still cold call every day. I'm 56 years old, and I love the interaction. I love the energy of it. That's what it's all about. As Robert Monroe said, who studied out-of-body experiences for 45 years, he's got the Monroe Institute in Virginia. His daughter runs it. Best book, probably top 5 book ever written, called Ultimate Journey. He wrote 3. He says, all we take with us in this lifetime, Jess, is our shared moments. All we take is shared moments. So if I'm not giving more in every shared moment, then I'm holding something back. And this is the exact same research and data that came out of all the research done on out-of-body experiences, out of near-death experiences. Near-death experiences, people have these, they go to the light and then they come back and they all say, all it was when I had this experience was that I've got a movie reel of my entire life. Each moment, all we have to do is put out as much as we possibly can in that shared experience. And what holds us back is fear, is I'm not good enough. It's that sense of self. And the more we work on, you know what, I'm just going to give everything in this moment, life enriches, life deepens. And that's really what it is. That's what the research shows. And we all know we're holding something back often all the time, right? I'm just not going to say it. You know what? I feel so strongly about that, but I don't want to hurt anybody. Shared moments. That's all we have with us.
Brother, like, you're preaching to my soul right now, because I've come to find in my life's journey eternal truths, and an eternal truth is time is the most precious commodity that we can never make more of.
Yeah.
You can make more money. You can make more homes. You can make more assets, but you can't make more time.
Yeah.
And so once you understand time, you start doing different things with your time.
Absolutely.
And shared experiences is a huge thing to incorporate into your time, and seeking out journeys and moments. But the other side of time in that vein are relationships. So if time's the most important commodity, relation's the most important currency. And for me, it's like we've known each other. Our souls have known each other for eternity.
Without a doubt.
And I can't wait to see where our journey leads. And this is our relationship. You can see in real time brewing and building over a podcast. But the relationships that I've called into my life, I could die a happy man now. Like the whole thing of like surround yourself with 5 people. I could show you your future, or I could tell you how your life is. My life is fucking beautiful, brother.
Mhm.
And it's full of color. And it wasn't always that way. When I was young, I was seeking things and trying things and, things that weren't working out. But over time, I started crafting and whittling down what I wanted my ideal life to look like. It has nothing to do with money. The money comes. The money's a byproduct of happiness and hard work and like relationships. But the thing that's the most important is what you do with your time and who you do it with.
Absolutely. And we were talking before the show started. Vulnerability and opening one's heart is the only way home. And what holds men back especially is that boy heart that wants to open, that wants to weep, that has these longings. It's the boy heart that our adult self, our rational self, the 56-year-old self in me, that all these things I should have, I could have, I want to hold back. The reason why you're finding and feeling this peace, Jess, is because you've opened up. You've cracked open the heart.
Yes.
And that's the whole game. And it's the hardest thing. And the first time a man cries as an adult, it's so overwhelming because we're not used to it. It's like this foreign land. We're like,
we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it.
Exactly. And the first time I meditated was 25 years ago on St. Patrick's Day. I was living in London. I was 31 years old. I was really unhappy in the financial field, making a bunch of dough, but miserable. Yes. And I sat for that first time. And the tears, my body was weeping. There was no content to it. So I always say to folks, especially men, if you sit quietly long enough, just long enough, 10, 15 minutes, you might have to do it over and over again. Something's going to come up, an old memory, an old sensation, an old longing for that dog, your grandfather that died in the 80s, whatever it is. And there's a little drop of rain, and that's the tear on the desert floor. And that's the open heart. And the Buddha says, if you soften up enough, if you meditate enough, if you sit long enough, a butterfly lands on a flower. This is the Buddha. A butterfly lands on a flower and you weep from joy.
Yes.
You weep from this tenderness and the sadness. The Native Americans, the old Native Americans had a ceremony called lamenting. Yes. And the old men would get around. And they would weep and weep. And people are like, what are they weeping for? Because life is so precious. And that's what you have found, Jess. At 39, this powerful journey you've been on, which has just begun, and it's transforming, and you're transforming other people just by your presence. It's because your heart is so open, it's so tender, and you can feel other people's lives. When you open up and feel your own sadness and longing, it's so clear you can feel other people's sadness and longing, and you're holding space for people's deepest longings. That's what the warrior heart does. It's your boy heart carrying the 39-year-old body soul.
I got goosebumps for the third time today. The third conversation with another powerful divine masculine brother. And part of the divine masculine, people don't realize this. Yes, the warrior is there, but the vulnerability has to be there. It has to be the paradox, the yin and the yang. I can go out and I could create havoc, build castles. I can protect my family, but I can lay on the floor with 16 other people like I did this weekend and cry my eyes out and find my purpose in life and be okay with that. And not even be okay, but just be in the knowing that is divinity in itself, just being open and aware, because then it also touches other people and they go co-create in the world. And they add value to the world and they change the people that are around them. And they become what we have this thing called vortexes of light. They become a vortex. They emit love, light, truth, and healing so that other people can do the same thing in their life. And brother, holy shit. I can't tell you how powerful it's been, but I am so glad that I've taken the negatives, the heartache, the broken spirit of my life and been able to heal that through work. And then now I can say, hey, I'm a fucked up kid from Boston that has this healing. If you've had any of these things happen to you, you can grow and heal too. And brother, it's put me on this path of love and light and healing and relationships that I can't even describe to you with words that are real in this world.
It's when the masculine opens. I always say this. I'm always telling my friends, just sit. They're like, Bill, I'm so tired of you saying, just go sit. I said, go sit. And one of these days you're going to call me, because you're going to be down on your knees. You're going to be weeping. And I say, when the universe is going to shudder, because I'm going to feel, because the universe doesn't like a vacuum. And when the masculine heart breaks open to the boy, there's literally a biomagnetic shift. It's a little pulsation in the universe. Yes. And that's another male soul who's dropped the veil, who's opened up to the boy. And when a male can hold space for somebody else, male or female, yes, that's what this Aquarian age is. I know it sounds all new agey, but we're done with a Piscean age. The old, fat, white, unconscious, rich men, yes, that gig is up. And those are just boy hearts inside men trying to act tough, which is really, yes, vulnerability holding itself back.
Yes.
Right? That kind of bravado is vulnerability, looking for a home, can't open, doesn't want to weep. And when a male can weep in public,
yes,
and be vulnerable in public, it sets a tone. It literally changes literally the airwaves. It changes everything.
It changes hearts. And I'll tell you, like, it's contradictory to the people that live in the the uber masculine. Again, I'm masculine as shit. Someone called me Tarzan the other day, but I'm a loving Tarzan. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just how it goes. Right. And, yes, and it's so powerful, because it's the ego. And we know this working with like Carl Jung's work and all the stuff that you've done. You're a wizard with what you do. And I'm going to get into that in a moment, but we are changing and affecting change through being vulnerable. And vulnerability is one of the greatest strengths that you can deploy.
Scary at first. Yes. Really, really scary.
And stepping into it.
It's scarier than any movie, than anything that moves in the dark. There's nothing more scary than one's own longing and sadness creeping up. And what do? We do everything. I call it ING. We go running, we go smoking, we go drinking, all the INGs to do what? To hold this thing back.
Working, everything. Yes.
Fucking,
yes.
Working out, all the INGs. But when we sit quietly, we sit alone, just sit like this in a posture and just sit and listen. It has no other place to go but up, and it meets the rational self. And when the two meet, game over. Now you're in the game.
Yes, brother.
Now
I want to know how you became the wizard that you are.
The wizard.
You're a total wizard, dude. You might not label yourself.
That's one of the words my wife would call me, but it wouldn't be top 10. Well, it happened. It happened. Well, unbeknownst, until I didn't really realize that my grandfather was a surgeon. My grandmother, back in the 50s, ran the Red Cross. So there was something in me that kind of was DNA wise designed to be in the space of helping others.
Yes.
But not all that was formed when I was 31. Again, I was living in London. I was working at Salomon Brothers. I was working at a bank, and I was just miserable, Jess. I don't know what, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't be in a relationship, but I date, my heart was just drying up and I didn't know it. And that first time I meditated, a friend of mine said, you should do therapy and you should go meditate. I'm like, F you. I'm from New Jersey. I'll white knuckle it. I'll figure that out. And that first time I sat, March 17th, 1996, in my third floor walk up in London, in Chelsea, I wept. My body was weeping with no content. There was no emotion. And I fell to the ground and I passed out. And I came to, and it was dark out, and I heard welcome back. I heard welcome back. Crazy. And then I sensed, I'm like, and so then I'm like, did somebody come in the room? I passed out. Did somebody sneak in? I had this really kind of almost edgy, nervy sense that there was somebody in the room. And suddenly I heard this chanting, and I was sitting what seemed like in this circle of Native American women, old women chanting. And I tell that story all the time. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to take me away in a straitjacket. So I called my friend. She's like, perfect, get this book. And she gave me these books. Path with Heart was the first one. And I just kept reading and sitting and reading and sitting. What I realized is that what I'd entered was kind of what Joseph Campbell says of the hero's journey. It had just begun, and I wanted to study it. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to study this. So I wasn't just reading books, taking notes, and reading the next book. I would finish a book, get to the end. What book did that person use? And I would go buy that book.
Yes.
But I was meditating every single day and doing yoga, and my world unwound. My grandfather, who had been dead for 7 years, was coming back to me in my dreams. I was getting dream guides. I'm like, oh my God, I've lost my mind. I'm going to absolutely lose my mind. And to be honest, I'm 25 years in. I still feel like I've lost I feel like I have 1 foot in the non-physical and 1 foot in the physical. And it's not easy. I got 3 kids. I got 3 kids in college.
Yes.
But that's the journey that I chose. I truly believe we choose the patterns. I had a friend say to me 18 years ago, Bill, until you realize that you chose your grandparents, you're never going to totally get it. And I'm like, what are you
Yes.
talking about? And I slowly realized that every moment was chosen somehow. And I try to teach that in my counseling practices. Where you are is exactly where you need to be. And our rational mind's like, it doesn't feel like the right place.
Yes.
So Wizard's not what it is, Jess, is I've decided that everything else is an illusion except how I feel. And they say the only thing you can control is how you feel. So if I can't control anything else out there,
Yes.
why don't I just work on Bill and be a beacon, be present for the outside world, and then take what I learn back into my cave. I sit every single day. I cry pretty much every single day. It sounds crazy, but I'll probably end up tearing up every podcast I've done. It's why? Because if you ask me who I am and what I want, I just want to be present.
Yes.
I want to be present for other humans. And it's not easy, but I can't figure out anything else to do.
It's a big piece to holding space, right? For
It
yourself,
is. Yeah.
and for other people.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate, humbled, lucky, grateful, all the adjectives to hold space and create a beautiful container
Mm.
for 14 other people, co-facilitating, co-holding space with my brother Lane Balone. And it was fucking powerful, brother. It felt like I was on the journey with them. It felt like I wasn't on substance. I wasn't, I was tapped into just being present and being what the moment called for, which was just an open vessel and watching people emote different feelings from pure bliss to doing deep inner child work where people had, basically said they felt like they had been abused or molested and like going deep, really deep, and just, being a beacon of trust and knowing that I wasn't going to
That's
sit there and try to fix anything, brother. That's some of the most powerful medicine you could ever deliver.
and people you just said is so important, especially in the kind of therapeutic and holding space world, whether it's called counseling, teaching. People know when another soul is honest. That's why kids are amazing. Kids know when an adult is full of malarkey, if
Yes.
adult is fully present. Like I love working with kids because I talk to them like they're 20-year-olds. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they understand when it's real, when the vibration's real. And trust is really the whole thing. It's first trusting self. But what also people say, well, you've kind of been on this journey, Bill, and you're really teaching other people. No, every moment I'm learning something. And that's one thing I was going to say. The reason why you're really good at what you do, because you're curious, because you have that 10-year-old curiosity about life. And no matter how big and chunky and unbelievably insightful the data you're getting from the universe, there's always more. There's always more. I mean, I had this for 25 plus years, and there's days where I'm like, I haven't learned anything. I haven't even begun. And I'm like, I'm 25 years in. Oh my gosh. But the point is, it's the curiosity. It's like that tree right there is never going to stop being a tree. And that tree every day is like, that tree is going to be the best tree. That's my goal. And that's what your goal is. How do I keep opening? How do I keep opening? How do I keep crying? How do I keep being present? You just have to keep sitting, coming out. The Buddha says, you got to go back to the cushion. But all these insights you got to take to the marketplace. This is what the Buddha says. You can't just go up into the mountains and sit forever. You got to take the insights and carry it to the marketplace. And just that's what you're doing, because you've got these chunky insights and you're like, okay, I'm going to write a book. I could do all these things. No, you're going out into the marketplace and going, I want to be part of the vehicle through which people can open up more.
Yes.
And like in the end, when you look back 50 years from now, you're going to be like, well, what else was there? Like I can accumulate till I'm, full, like, oh, I got all my stuff here.
Yes.
But what do I leave? And also what the Hindus say is we want to finish life up. Robert Monroe says, complete your life. Well, how do you do that? You get everything from Robert Monroe says that why we're here on earth, Jess, is to take everything from the non-physical and put it into the physical.
Yes.
So we're here. The earth is a very heavy, sticky, kind of gross dimension. And there's so many other dimensions, and we learn from all these other dimensions. But when we're here on earth, what we're trying to do is take everything from the non-physical. Our right brain's attached to the eternal. Our left brain's the newest part of our brain. We need our left brain to take everything from our right brain and put it into the material plane. But here's the key. You have to know what's coming through your right brain. Well, how do you do that? Through the meditation, through the work, through the sitting, through the ayahuasca, whatever it is. You got to know what the sadness and longing is. Go, oh, that's my sadness. That's my longing. Oh, what do I do with it? Oh, I go teach. Oh, I go take another class. Oh, I become a salesperson. Doesn't matter what you do. You just have to be authentic and true. And my journey is to finish, Bill up, finish this whole thing up. So maybe I don't have to keep coming back for another billion lifetimes, as the Hindus say.
You don't
I
have
want
to
to get
keep
it right.
repeating your soul's journey, right?
I want to get it right.
Get it right. And
yeah,
brother, there's so much there. There's so much power in all that we're discussing. I want to know personally, just about your meditation practice, either where it started from to where it is today, and then also, what are your grandfather and your guides leaving you in terms of wisdom or nuggets in your dreams? I want to know about all that. You can go wherever you want.
Well, starting with my meditation practice, it's not something that's rigid in the sense that I kind of do it when the best time to do it for me, I have found in the morning, of course, just when my brain's still in alpha and I come out before I get to beta. I really want to get to the cushion. I didn't get to it today.
When you say, are you like, as soon as you arise and before you start like you're just in that
foot on the ground,
suggestive, yes.
Foot on the ground. I walk right to my walk-in closet. I've got my cushion, the same cushion I've had since June of 1996.
Wow.
Exact same cushion. I just sit down and just go, that's the spot, right? That's eternity right there. When we sit and close our eyes, when a human being sits and closes their eyes, they are tapped in. They are the epicenter of eternity.
Yes.
Because that's when they have available all the information. So that's where I really want to do. I don't even stop for a glass or pee-pee. right to the I guess that's what I say to my dog. Right to the cushion. So that's my practice. I sit during the day. I'll close my eyes. I've got some great breath work. Just some real quick 5, 6, 7 minute breath work things.
Can you back up real quick? When you sit on the cushion and you plant, you become the beacon to the universe and eternity. What is it that are you just being, or are you doing any kind of mantra, any kind of chant, any kind of work? Or are you just letting things flow in and out?
I have mantras, but often it's just sitting, closing my eyes, focusing on the mouth of God, the medulla, focusing on the third eye, and focusing on the heart. Really, it's all about the heart. So I just close my eyes and focus. Yes. Do I call in some elders? I'm doing a bunch of Hindu chants, mantras these days. Absolutely. But all that stuff is just dressing on the salad. It's just close your eyes and focus on your heart.
Understood.
This is it. This is the pole position right here. I could drop in right now for 30 minutes. What would come up? Who knows? A lot of old stuff, a lot of new stuff, a lot of desire. People are like, Bill, I don't know how to meditate. Well, just close your eyes and focus on your heart. They're like, yeah, but I'm thinking about work. Then think about work. I'm thinking about this. Just think about it. There's nothing you have to do. Meditation is just about listening. Yes. Listen to the madness. Listen to the craziness. Listen to all the things that if I my eyes right now, I could list all the things I got to get done today, which I won't. But there's the crazy brain. And all it does after a while, you're just training your brain to slow down and tune into this guy right here, the heart. Beautiful. The heart's all, there's 40,000 brain neurons in your heart. Okay. So why go here when you can go here? Our heart sends 10,000 more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. This is the epicenter of the human thing.
Yes.
It's all the heart. And people, and they say now Alzheimer's work, and listen, men die of a broken heart. They don't die of a heart attack. It's a broken, unprocessed heart.
I believe it.
And now they're saying Alzheimer's, they're doing some of the research now where the heart has got so much biomagnetic energy coming that it's literally frying the brain. Now they're talking about that the brain after a while gets frazzled, and they call that stress, whatever you want to call it, but it's biomagnetic. There's a scientific, visceral content to all the stuff that the heart is trying to tell what? Trying to tell the brain, trying to tell the neocortex. So that's my practice. I'm trying to figure out where I am in any moment. Like when I sit, where am I right now? Am I 10 years old? Am I 55 years old? What do I want? Am I sad? Why am I sad? Am I thinking about my kids? I'm just trying to tune into that dial. Boop, boop, boop. Tune into the dial. Where am I right now? I'll do it for 10 minutes. I'll do it for 40 minutes. I'll do it for 3 minutes. And I'll just try to catch a little thread of where I'm actually at right now. And I think if human beings can do that, are you kidding me? How much more settled the energy? Imagine the politicians. If we made politicians sit for 15 minutes, they would find the little 18-year-old that's really angry with dad. They'd find the 14-year-old. Now the reason why they go out into the world and say silly things is because that's their 14-year-old desire
yes,
being activated in the adult brain. It's all It's out of whack.
I got a
It's not
funny
good.
story about politicians. Yesterday, we're driving back from a transformative weekend, and one of our
In
wizards
Georgia.
in Georgia, yeah, one of our wizards, his name is Steve Ricks. He's the muse of play, and how play has changed his life. And he works with huge titans of industry, bringing play back into their business and their lives, and all that does. And I would have to plug you into him so he can describe that to you much better than I could. But basically, he was like, I want to give all the politicians puppets. And like there was like just this weird synergy of the politicians actually being puppets, but like have them have puppets to work through play to change. And I was like, what we can do is we can put like some sort of dried psilocybin or some sort of dried ayahuasca on the inside of the puppet hand to create like a consciousness revolution along with the play. Exactly. And like this is just our funny brains coming back from this beautiful opening weekend, but it's interesting. Yeah.
It's the immaturity. I mean, John Bradshaw wrote the book Homecoming, and everybody should just stop the music and go get that book. It was written in 1990, and you can just read the first 20 pages. In fact, you don't have to do it. I'll send you my synopsis of it. All it is going back to the inner child.
Yes.
All my work always has been, and I've got 2 Zoom therapy sessions tonight. It's all going to be the same thing. Within the first 5 minutes, we close our eyes, we get quiet, and we go back to the 4th grader. Every relationship that you're in, Jess, started in 4th grade. Everything that you do started in 4th grade, because the first 10 years of your life, my life, the human being's life, is pure limbic. We soaked in our parents' experiences. They had soaked in their parents' experiences. And so our emotional, reactional disposition of who we are and what we want was built the first 10 years of our lives. And the rational mind layered it over, and we got to our late 20s, early 30s, the brain millenniates, the neurons start merging, and we're like, oh my God, how did I get here? It's all this emotional stuff. I started saying things in my early 30s when I had kids that was like my dad. I'm like, did I just say that? Because those were old echoes soaked in. And so how do we unsoak them and get them up? Sit quietly in therapy. I'm sorry, there's really the only 2 ways to get at work. What you're doing this weekend, that's therapy. Sitting quietly, sitting quietly. I just have to say, there's nothing more powerful. There's nothing more emotive. There's nothing more revealing than sitting alone. This is what, there's nothing, that's it. People like, Bill, there's got to be another way. You always say it. I'm like, show me something else. Yeah, you can do drugs. Just sit in a room with your back straight and just listen. And you do that, something's going to break and your life will shift. That's a guarantee. And if it doesn't, call me back and I'll pay you back.
Beautiful. And again, I'm just trying to help those that don't do this type of work quite yet, that are interested in it, learning about it. You know, obviously people make excuses about time when time is just this construct we've all agreed on. And it's not really even real in so many ways, but people put themselves in positions where they get a rush to work, rush to daycare, rush to this, rush to that, rush, and you miss out on your life. So for the layperson, what's a good chunk of time for them to at least start with to get the training of 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes? What's a palpable amount of time?
I love it. I'll tell you what's funny is I just had a Zoom session with a buddy of mine that I've known for 35 years, close friend. He finally emails like, Bill, I'm not doing well with meditation. I've tried it, blah, 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 super successful. And just as an example, I just showed him a couple breathing exercises. We sit quiet. I said, Dom, 10 minutes. Just give me 10 minutes every day and report back. 10 minutes with your back straight. Not like this, like this. Back straight, and do what? Close your eyes and listen to your heart. That's it. Close your eyes, back straight, a room by yourself in the silence, and listen to your heart.
Beautiful.
That's it. And you can feel it, right? Like literally,
I just put myself there. I was like,
right. Yeah. And so here's what's powerful for anybody listening. When you close your eyes, I think it's about 90 seconds or 90 seconds plus. As soon as you close your eyes, your pineal gland at the top of your skull starts to get a message from the circadian rhythm hormone producers in your body, starts to get a message that it's safe, and it starts secreting serotonin and melatonin. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Just by closing your eyes? Yeah, close your eyes and actually focus on the top of your head. Within 5 minutes, you're literally zoning down. You're literally dialing it down. This is what scares people. When you dial down your rational, guess what happens? Your limbic system, your heart belly with all those memories starts popping up. And an old memory from 15, when, something bad happened, you're like, oh, and people run away from the silence. I get it. Yes. I absolutely get it.
The silence can be deafening.
Are you kidding me? It's one of the most, it's a scary movie.
Yes.
sometimes. Our lives have stuff in there and we don't want to remember it. That's the only thing holding people back. So anybody listening is trust it. Find somebody that can help you kind of walk through those tough memories. I mean, meditation and counseling are the two most powerful. That combination will change lives.
No
It'll
question. And I'm
change
a huge
everything.
advocate for counseling. Through my life's journey, because I've either put myself in positions or have just had positions thrust upon me, I've needed some counseling. I've needed some wise advice. And I've become a wise advisor in the financial space, right? And it's like one of those things where you have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, that have more information than you, that are great human beings that you can walk through life with. And there are people that have been profoundly impactful in my life, from Kevin Daly at Broken Chains to Jeffrey Cohen, who's a
Mm.
therapist here in Atlanta. And having that wise counsel of people that can just hold space, ask questions that'll create more thought, more feeling, drag things out of you that maybe you weren't really paying attention to. You need those elders in a sense. They don't have to necessarily be older. They could be wise beyond their years, but you need those elders around you. And I think that people look at it, there's this stigma, and it's starting to change slowly, I feel like, but
Yeah.
there was this stigma, like people wouldn't even talk. They use terms like shrink what? You're expanding your heart, your brain, your soul, your energy, your vibrancy, like everything. So people have to, my love and hope for people would be to reframe this idea of, if you're in therapy, there's something wrong. No, it's something right. You're on a path, you're on a journey, you're called to heal. And if you can heal yourself at levels that you didn't even know existed, you will become a beacon of hope and truth for other people.
It's so funny you said that, because in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, yeah, therapy is like, oh, you're doing therapy. Nowadays, when I ask people if have you ever tried a therapist? It's becoming, the shift has happened. It's almost like, you haven't seen a therapist? Really?
Right.
You haven't
Right.
had a 10-minute, you haven't had a 1 hour conversation. You haven't paid the $30 copay, the greatest, lowest risk, best return investment of your entire life. What happens though, a couple of things happens. One, people find the wrong therapist and they get spooked by it, right? But I'm always like, the mechanic didn't work well, I call another mechanic. I always
Yes.
tell my buddies, try it. You don't like it, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. And if you're hurting that therapist's feelings, that therapist needs more work. Really, what therapy is just, it's two things. It's asking questions. See, you're willing to ask questions. Yes, you're curious, asking questions. The key is the next bit, and this is what salespeople, good salespeople are, hopefully I am, is not just asking the question, but listening and being
Yes.
present for the answer. Because if I'm waiting for the answers to get on to the next question, I'm not holding space. I have to be, and a good elder, a good somebody that's good for other people. I feel like I understand my sadness and longing so much that no matter what you send my way, I can be in that space with you. I can feel it and I can hold it, because I've done almost, I don't know, I'm getting close to 9,000 hours of sitting quietly. And when you know your own vibration, your own sadness, your own longing, your own regrets, your own joy, your joy and regrets aren't going to be that much different. They're going to have a different flavor to it. They're going to have a different tone to it. But if I ask the question, I want to know, and I want to know more. And that's what you're doing with your work. You're willing to have people sit, cathartic, open. You're asking them questions, and just the question asked. That's really what counseling is asking questions, letting them have the answers, and then taking them down river or upriver, back up to self, or down into the future, knowing that these questions are going to continue to come up, and that, are you willing to sit with other people's stuff?
Yes.
And you are. Why? Because you've been through your own stuff.
Yes.
You want to be with other people's stuff. I want to be in people's discomfort. I want to hear about their their traumas.
Yes.
Why? Because we're all in it together. The great poem, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. That means when the bell tolled and somebody passed away, a part of us left too.
Yeah.
And so if a part of us left too, then can a part of us be part of what's still here? And that's other people's stuff.
The collective.
The
Absolutely.
collective. Yeah.
Tell me about some of the insights, the downloads, the takeaways that your guides or elders,
Mm,
or even your grandfather
grandfather.
have delivered in some of your dreams and your visions.
The first one I remember, I can't believe this is 25 years ago. I just started. So I started sitting and I started doing some yoga, and I'm in the dream and I'm in this room, and he's sitting in the far corner of the room. He starts walking towards me. And I know it sounds crazy. He's got these white robes on. And he says to me, he asked me, can I teach him yoga? I said, Pop up, where are you? He's like, oh, I'm just in another classroom. I'm traveling around with another classroom, and I wanted to come back and spend some time with you. We didn't get to spend as much time in this past lifetime. And he grabs my hand and we go, we take off. And I wake up, I'm like, what just happened? But what that did is it opened up my heart and my mind too, that he's still around me. And I know that sounds kind of all common now. Well, of course he's around, but no, I felt his presence, and he was a surgeon. He physically worked on people. But what he wasn't able to do, Jess, is he wasn't able to emotionally engage his family at the level that I think a part of him regretted unable to do. He served in the Second World War. And so he did great physical work for people, tremendous physical work. He was written up in the New York Times. But that lesson for me was that I want to be a surgeon of the inner world. I want to be really deeply involved in people's inner world, a place that he didn't get to. So the lesson I got from him is the physical stuff's great, Bill, but you got to be there for the non-physical, for the emotional stuff. That was a big one. I had a dream guide show me my future wife, my wife now, 24. Wow. The biggest downloads I've gotten and still get is that this thing just never ends. And it's our thoughts that are continually putting blocks and constructs on it. Here's the hard part. And I'm 25 years in, and I still can't figure it out. I don't know how to necessarily put these threads, these powerful blocks of insights that I'm just part of, just like that tree. I'm just part of this much bigger interplay. And that this is just some kind of an illusion. Yes. And then it's only, as the Hindus say, that we've poked through the Nadu Bindu, we've poked through non-existence into existence. What I do with that existence, I'm still not sure, Jess. Yeah. I'm still not sure, but it's so big and it's so powerful. The hardest thing is how to take these blocks of insights that are eternal and put it to work today, put it to work on a Monday. How do I put it to work? What do I do? And it's the mundanity of all our lives. It's the grind, right? We get into the grind of like, I've got to do this, all these shouldas and couldas, which we have to do in the material world. We have to serve the material world or we don't eat.
Yes.
That divide is still a battle royale for me. How do I just be the guru that I feel like I want to be and can be and am for the world out there, but I've got to pay the bills too. And so I don't have an answer to that. It's not easy.
What I'm finding, because I'm working through this as well, specifically exactly that idea is just for me, really stepping into these, what do you call them? Downloads. You can call them learnings. You can call them, experiences, whatever you want to call them, whatever sounds better for people to digest, and just deploying them in my day-to-day life as best I can. I've been called to be and receive love. I've been called to teach freedom and truth. Teach freedom and truth. I've been called to do different things, and just every micro interaction I have with a human being, I try to always be that authentic self and that higher self, and put those things into play. And it's not always easy. There's times where my kids are doing something, they're frustrating me, and the kids are my best teachers and they're my sacred mirrors, and they're just showing me that I'm being an asshole. And I'm like, shit, okay, I got to operate for more playfulness or love or light and truth and like all these different things. And so I think it's just it's a daily practice, like meditation. You got to get in there every day, swing the bat, take a couple swings. You might strike out, you might hit a home run. You come back the next day. What you did yesterday doesn't matter. You got to do it again today. Totally. And you just keep building and building and building and just kind of stepping into that authentic self.
What I'll tell you, Jess, sorry, not to interrupt, is what I learned early on was there's this spiritual addiction almost. There's we get caught in the bliss, right? And as Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. Well, if you're always following your bliss, you're going to get awfully hungry.
Right.
And those bills won't get paid. And that was something that I really had to ground. I mean, the blocks of insights that you're getting that I continue to get, it's so like profound. You're like, oh my God, I'm just part of this massive play of illusion that's part of eternity. I mean, I've seen eternity rolling in front of me. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
And then, Tuesday morning rolls around and it's 10 o'clock. I'm like, what do I do with fucking eternity here?
Right. Right. No, it's great.
And so it's really coming out of the bliss and applying it, right? Left brain and right brain, applying the wisdom, which is, again, it's a powerful struggle for men, especially, right? Because we want to be the warriors in the material world. And then we're warriors in this non-physical world, and getting those two kingdoms to come together, I think is part of, I know for me, it's part of the task of this lifetime is learning how to bridge the two, always having one foot in both, and just trying to be present in both. I've got to be super present in my material world, but I've got to be super present in my non-physical world. When I'm not happy. Right. And here's a powerful space. They say that depression really is the measure of two things. Our desire world is based in the limbic, our belly and heart. This is our desire world. What do we want? What's the fourth grader want? What's the 14-year-old inside of Jess want? What does the 39-year-old want? And then our belief world, a belief is just a thought that's done over and over and over again. Our belief world says, I can do this or I can't do that. I can't be who I want to be. I can't get that job. I can't do these things. So our desire world is going up and pushing, our belief world pushing it down. And that gap between what we think we can achieve is depression, is sadness,
Yes.
is that lethargy of our life. And it's tough. Well, how do we meld the two? Keep meditating, bringing the desire world up and introduce it to our belief world and soften our beliefs that anything is possible, but it's got to be done through the energy, through the biomimetic energy of our desire world, and having the childlike desire meet the over-rationalized adult who's really calcified going, I can't do this. I'm no good. I'm not good enough. And so it's merging those two. And that's where people get into the space of depression, because they haven't opened up their feelings to this kind of what they think they can do with what they think is possible.
Yes. Yes. And for me, just thinking about how you arrived at certain points and how you've been able to grow spiritually, you know, in the reality of this world that we're in. Was it meditation mainly that brought you to the consultation and the consistent connection with your guides and your grandfather? Or was there other tools that you were using that had them, you know, appear before you more frequently? Was it the meditation was the basal kind of cause, or was there something else added with that you kind of started engaging in them more? Was it yoga and meditation? Was it just the meditation? Like, what was it that kind of helped you tap into that power?
It's a great question. Without a doubt, sitting quietly, as we say, it was the most powerful way. There was just no way around it. And the reason I can say that is because it's still a listening. It's still the pathway. It's still the road. What the real key for me though was that having the insights was one thing, but I realized I didn't know how to apply them just in my regular, just in my relationship with my wife. When my relationship was evolved, I was still insecure in the physical material world. I still felt less than. Here at nighttime, I'm this like shamanic wizard, right? For lack of a better word. And then morning would come and I'm like, I'm a fucking loser in the suburbs. I'm a 38-year-old fucking loser.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, I hate using that word, but that's the sensation I was getting. And so I had to keep using every interaction with my boss, with my neighbor, going, okay, what's getting kicked up in Bill? What's getting kicked up in me? And really, the meditation opened it all up, but doing more therapy and doing couples therapy with my wife was really powerful because the rubber had to meet the ground. I had to be able to take I had to apply my sense of self that was coming up in this non-physical space and apply it in the regular world. And I'm still doing it.
Yes.
I'm still doing. So part of me is like, man, I must have missed the mark a lot of times, but life is the teacher. Nothing else can teach us but life. We can have all these past life experiences. We carry all this karma in, but it's for me, the answer to the question was I feel like I was willing to keep going. I didn't get all that self-worth. I didn't bring all that up. I didn't get the 14-year-old to come up. The 14-year-old is still angry. My 14-year-old inside of me is still really fucking angry and still thinks all adults are a bunch of idiots. So literally the 14-year-old, this is true. This 14-year-old and the 56-year-old are still trying to establish a relationship. I still go back to my room and I call my 14-year-old and I call my fourth grader in and I call us in and I go, guys, I need help. I need help. The 56-year-old needs help. I'll tell you, yeah, the 14-year-old is the key to my life. The inner 14-year-old is the key to my life. He holds the energy. He holds the knowledge. He's a dancer. I didn't know I wanted to dance. I played soccer. That was my dance as a kid. But, you know, when you're in Jersey in the 70s, dancing's like, oh, you're not going to dance. So soccer was my dance.
Like Saturday Night Fever wasn't a thing up there?
And maybe it was a thing, but I was too insecure. I was too like, that's too effeminate.
I have a story about dancing I want to share with you. Yeah.
So yeah, the inner 14-year-old is the key. So to answer the question is being willing to do the work, not just bringing the insights and carrying them and applying them and sitting in front of a therapist and sitting in front of my wife and being honest and crying in public, knowing, man, there's just more of me to come out, and I either get it out or I just carry it. I just carry it to the next lifetime. I don't want to carry this stuff into the next lifetime.
Right. Regrets, thoughts.
Oh God.
It's poison for the soul, and it only poisons the holder, you know?
So powerful.
So dancing, I was very similar. I always was called to dance and be creative, but I was, by the outside influences of growing up in East Boston or, in a tough town. It's like the agoge for Spartans. Like I really went through that as a kid, and it's interesting. But I always wanted to be more. I was very creative. I draw. I even the last 2 times I drew that I can really. There's been 3 times, but it's like once every few years. I drew a picture of Batman for Grayson when he was born. I drew a picture of Robin for William when he was born. And then I have had a couple of things here and there, but I was a creative, and I used to write poetry and write stories. And I've started tapping back into that over the last few years. Poetry is one that I've been tapping back into. Singing, like the sound of someone's own voice out loud in a singing vibration is scary to so many people, but it's so powerful. And it's so unique. And like, I started singing during COVID, like all this different stuff. And so like, I started getting into things like photography and like, just really just being a kid and playing. And so dance was always something that was very scary to me, because your physical body is moving in a way that's not normal in front of a group of other people, where if you
it's not rational,
if you fear judgment, if you fear criticism, it is one of the craziest places to be doing something that's really weird in front of people. So I knew, because of that, we had to do an ecstatic dance this weekend. Like I knew this was part of the curriculum for the weekend, no question.
Yeah.
And so I curated this beautiful playlist, and I'll share it with you through Spotify. If you have Spotify, you can get it. But I'll share with you this playlist. And brother, it was so fucking divine. It was like, there was tribal stuff. There was like, Bring Me a Higher Love in like a faster form. Like there was all these like intentional songs. There was, White Stripes, Seven Nation Army. I'm going to Wichita. Dun, 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 dun. Like it was like that beat, like that, getting everybody really going. And I'll tell you, man, 16 people went into that room. Danced. The ecstatic dance was 8 to 9. 6 of them went out to the fire from like 9 to 10:30. The other 10 stayed, and brother, we just played. My calves are still sore to this day. And we were jumping and we were emoting. And like, there was a time where we did this circle, and like everybody was in the circle. One person had to step in and like do some like animal nature call that just called to them, like their animal power. And like people were caw and like rah, like doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And everybody had to repeat it and give it back to them, so they felt welcomed and loved. And people were getting in the center of the room, and everybody was dancing alone in a group of other people that were dancing alone. And it was fucking bliss. It was bliss. And I'll tell you, the next day I was like, we need to do an ecstatic dance again. Like we have to continue this kind of work, because it's liberating. Brother, I'll dance with you anytime.
Anytime. So that's what concerts are. That's why concerts are so powerful. People are viscerally moved through concerts. That's what, the ancient Greeks, those big arenas, those big amphitheaters, those were, if you do the research on it, those were what you guys did. Those 3,000-4,000 people, they would give a little bit of a potion, and they would have this is what the natives have been doing since the beginning of time. 200,000 years, native human beings have been dancing around fires to call in what? To call in the non-physical, to get out of rational, to get into the non-physical, to get out of adult, to get to the child. That is what ecstatic dance is getting out of the rational to get into the non-physical, to get into the emotive, to get into the limbic. Our limbic system, our reptilian brain is tapped into what? Eternity. Our reptilian brain is part of what? A 200 million year old structure? 200 million, right? Our rational mind can't even spell 200 million.
No.
And so all it is just turning the channel, just turning the dial for a long moment. And then we have to come back and we have to integrate the two. That's the hardest thing, integrating those experiences. What did I learn? Who am I now?
Yes.
But the ecstatic, the dance, all elders, all ancient, everything is based on getting the human being to dance around.
Yes.
Because when a human dances, the non-physical, what do you call them? The fairies, the angels, the shaman, whatever it is, whatever you believe in, God, Jesus, Allah, is listening. It's listening.
Brother, I'll tell you, for me, I'm really big into biohacking. So just augmenting and optimizing my physical body to be able to show up fit for service in life. Right. And this is things from physical training, nutrition, sleep, getting 15 minutes of direct sunlight every day, grounding on the earth, decharging my body, doing all different stuff, and taking cold showers and all that entails. And, all these things I love to do. They're things that are part of my daily routine. And part of this ecstatic dance played into the health and wellness of the physical body, because there's a thought, there's actually a book called Blue Zones, but have you heard of Blue Zones before?
Yes, sir.
So Blue Zones, for people that are listening or watching, there's a map behind you, and around the world, places like Okinawa, Finland, there's 9 different blue zones in the world where they have the most centurions that are people that are exceeding 100 years of life gracefully. They're burning the candle bright the whole time. They're not just eking into 80 and 90 years old, like feeble and breaking, hips and like dying because of fragility. Like they're living beautifully, and they're trying to, the science, right? So this is great because we've talked a lot about spirituality and like the astral, so to speak.
Yep.
But the science, the hard, the data, the specifics of this reality are figuring out, yeah, it's a little bit potentially to do with like the location and nutrition, but they're all eating different things, so that's not really a thing. And they're also, it's environment or it's genetics, but what they're really starting to find out, those things kind of play a little bit of a role. What they're finding out is things like ecstatic dance and singing and community. And playing with each other until they're 100 and moving their bodies. This is what's keeping them youthful into 100 years old.
And so yes, exactly, 100%. And inside of all that is this thing called relationships.
Yes, that's the whole thing.
And it's the whole thing. And so when I saw the results of the Harvard Grant study, which is an 80-year-old longitudinal study that started in the mid 40s, and it's still going on. And what they started doing is studying the sophomore and junior class of Harvard guys. This is in 40, 42, 43, 44. And now they're studying their great grandkids. They summarized the whole Grant study in 2016 by saying the most important thing in a human being's life is relationships, and how the economics, your health, all this stuff based on relationship. It doesn't mean a marriage has to survive. It just means that there's important relationships that you have, because we're mammals. By DNA, we have to be relating. In our culture, Jess, we've shut ourselves in. Forget about COVID. COVID was a tremendous experience because it forced a monastic life, which basically forced us to go inside and do what? Have a relationship with self.
Yes.
Everything starts with a relationship in self. So the blue zone is really the perfect data set, because it's a diverse bunch of communities that they're relating to each other. They feel comfortable. They feel trusted. They feel they can be vulnerable, and they're dancing physically and non-physically, and they're interacting in a comfortable space. That's what creates longevity. That's what we need to do, starting with self. That's what meditation is and therapy is. It's not trying to, yes, it's figuring out the outside life, but it's really just being okay with yourself. Here's the whole key to life.
Give it to us.
Liking oneself.
Yes.
Loving. Forget about loving.
Loving.
Loving is the home run. That's the home run ball. That's the Babe Ruth ball. I'm slowly getting, I have moments where I have wonderful compassion and dare I say love for self.
There's a reason why you're a therapist. You gradually get you there, and I'm like the break the glass guy. Like, let's go. Like, so there's a great in between, right?
Exactly. And loving oneself, liking oneself is the key. It's the hardest thing to do. Loving oneself certainly comes to that, and that's the goal. But we're not really taught to like ourselves, right? We're taught that there's all these shoulds and coulds in religion, couldas and shouldas.
Yes.
And our crazy, wonderful religions, it's kind of like we're born less than, we're born in sin. It's like
inferior, guilty, all that.
Yeah, it's like, it makes no sense. So that's really, for me, what meditation has introduced me to is the whole of myself. And I like and be disgruntled, be resentful and stuff. But in general, I'm kind of getting used to like, okay, maybe I'm a pretty decent guy. And
you are, brother.
And I'll keep figuring out. Well, what I'll tell you is what I like about myself is I'm really curious.
Yes.
Is I'm really, really curious. And I love my curiosity, and I love my commitment, and I love my energy, and I love my desire. The things about myself that I don't like that I'm getting, hopefully by the time I'm 80, I'll figure it all out. But there's something powerful when a male gets into his 50s, that things settle down a lot more. Like what I thought I knew in my 30s, I'm like, God, I was pretty smart in my 30s. And when I was in my 40s, I'm like, I was retarded in my 30s. Now I'm in my 50s. And I'm like, how did I survive my 40s?
Right.
I can't wait to know how smart I am when I get to my 60s. But the point is, liking oneself is powerful. And when we are in a community where we can be honest and share, we can have other people like ourselves, and that helps our sense of self. And we can be honest with other people and trust other people and be vulnerable.
I can tell you what I love about you already is your authenticity and like who you are. And so a lot of what I say to people is thank you for being you. Like that's what I completely feel when I talk to you, because we need more of the authentic versions of people like you in the world. We need people to go out there and say, screw it. I've done this, I've done that, I've achieved whatever, but there are some eternal truths that you emit. And by just being you and in your presence, it's a fucking present. It's a gift. It's beautiful. So I'm thankful for your authenticity, and I'm going to do this on purpose because
you're making me weep. You're making me shed a tear before 11 o'clock. That's that's an early tear, although typically but that's sweet. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So I set the intention before we actually started recording about you and I having multiple conversations in different capacities, podcast, life, business, and I'm going to do this one on purpose. So this will extend into like our cutoff time for both of us, which is 11:30. So being mindful of that time, but also planting the seed and pulling the string like a good salesman would. I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about just initial before our next conversation, part 2, to talk about Carl Jung. And there's so much, there's hours, and then there, your guy, Robert Monroe, like all this, these thought leaders of consciousness and awakening and bringing science into it and philosophy and psychology and all these different things that are so true. I want to first give you some insight on how I've learned about Carl Jung, and then also kind of hear about how you were introduced to him. But so for Carl Jung, I was listening to a band that's so profound to this day. Their name is Tool. And Tool is a collective of some of the most amazing musicians this world has ever seen. They are psychonauts. They travel into the astral and come back with eternal truths. They are not afraid to be rebellious and incite riots, so to speak, in terms of thought, in terms of kind of anti-government to a degree. No, not all government's bad, but a lot of it is. They speak truth. And they were highly impacted early on in their career by Carl Jung, specifically Carl Jung's shadow work.
Wow.
Shadow and archetypes. And I was turned on immediately as a kid. I'm 39. I've been listening to Tool for at least 25 years. And they found me. And their messages, opening your third eye and spiritual beings. And they've gracefully evolved in the last 30 years they've been doing music. But their core tenets came from Carl Jung and his ideology. And there's this thing that people have called their shadow. And you can explain this much better than I ever could, but it's the repressed side of their psyche. And we all have one, just like we all have an ego, and the ego doesn't always necessarily have to be bad, but we have a sense of self, and that's ego, and we can't get rid of it. So when people say kill the ego, I'm like, you can't. you
need the ego. Sorry, we need it.
Right. And so all these things that Carl Jung puts into the world, going back to the shadow work, there was this song by Tool back in the day called 46 and 2. And 46 and 2 has 3 meanings. And 46 and 2 actually is the name of my wealth management firm, 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. One of the things is talk about evolving through your shadow work, doing the deep, deep work that's not comfortable, evolving through that work and learning something about yourself. So you can become a light warrior or bigger, into the positivity, right? The other piece of 46 and 2 was actually your DNA. So we have 44 and 2 now chromosomes. It's like 23andMe, right? So you have 46 total.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So 23andMe is really 23 times 2, and that's the chromosomes you have. You have 2 that are sex chromosomes. The other, I'm not a science guy, but there's the opposite is the other 44. And they're saying that the next step in human evolution is unity consciousness, where we leave this disharmonious state that we're in now of conflict, of separateness, and we all align in one unity consciousness. It's like the evolved ape theory, where like if you pass a piece of information through a certain amount of apes, they all understand, they all become conscious, their consciousness comes online. And so the idea is that our DNA will change through whatever means so that we can become unified as a collective. And then this is heaven on earth. And then the last piece is the science behind it. Melchizedek, I believe his last name is, Russian scientist, talks about grids that are formed on Earth for every species of life, 60 miles below the Earth, 60 miles above the Earth. And these grids support life. You cannot have a bug, a human, and you cannot have things that live on Earth without these grids. And this all plays into this 46 and 2 song, which is incredible. Tool is so friggin' thoughtful. It's insane. Wow,
that's amazing.
And with the idea is like we would all become harmonious together. And so my business became Evolve Together 46 and 2. And that's where that all plays together. All based on Carl Jung is where I'm going with this. So my teacher, like you, I went from Tool that was the teacher to where they learned that part from, which was Carl Jung, and then going back, Freud and all the stuff. So how did you learn about Carl Jung?
First of all, I want to respond to the fact that if you really start digging into human history, the Atlantean culture, isn't some kind of fantasy. There were
totally real.
Like if you read the accounts of the Brits when they went to Australia, the Aboriginals were there. They would look at an Aboriginal, they look away, they look back, and he's gone, because they're just pure vibrational. Aboriginals didn't have to talk. It was all telepathic. All the Native Americans living on this soil were all telepathic. Those were all unified grids of human experiences prior to the concretizing of the rational single God religions 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. It was kind of a, this has just been a conflagration of the rational. And now we're going to return. So in response to that, everything you said isn't like new agey. It already happened. People are rational kind of are too focused on the current lens of a lot of our culture is all that stuff's airy fairy new agey. Do the work, go back and check it out, right? So
Yes.
all we're doing is returning, right? Returning to
Agreed.
as Crosby, Stills and Nash is returning to the garden.
Yep.
How did I get turned on to Carl Jung? I just kept reading and reading and reading. And every book I read, and I have the list of the great books: Yogananda, Far Journey, Ultimate Journey, Path with Heart. My book that I wrote, it's basically it's infused with Carl Jung's belief. And Carl Jung, who started with space with I'm totally spacing his name. You just said it. Anyways,
Freud.
Freud started with Freud. And he's like, it's not enough. You're too focused on this kind of cursed childhood, whatever it might be, and
mother, father wounds, all that.
Exactly. So the shadow was a big thing. The shadow. What I realized, what he taught me, was that the inner child. And Joseph Campbell's work. Joseph Campbell's the greatest thinker of the last 100 years. Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, Stop the Music. Those two guys will take you all the way home. And all of Joseph Campbell's work comes out of Carl Jung's. It's the child emotions. It's the child's desire. It's that child desire. Those emotions are being held down by the rational. The shadow is just the pure play and knowledge and wisdom and joy and longing, sadness of the child that's been held back. And once we release them, we're taking the cover off. So there's no more shadow. It's Bill's inner child. It's my fourth grader self coming up. Now, here's what I took Carl Jung's archetypes, and I realized this in a marriage. My book's called Waking Up Marriage, Finding Truth in Your Partnership. I use the archetypes in my marriage. I suggest that your relationship with your spouse, my relationship with my wife, everybody's relationship with their wife isn't one relationship, it's 8. What do I mean by that? If you take Carl Jung's belief that there's archetypical experience, there's the archetype of the elder, of the matriarch, you have 4 relationships going on inside of you, living inside you right now. You have a relationship with the feminine, with the matriarch. Somehow you relate with your mom, the ancient relationship with the matriarch. You have this experience and the sensibility around it. You have the relationship with the patriarch. That's 2. You have a relationship with self. What is your knowledge of self? What do you really know about self? And then you have a relationship, Jess, with relationships. You witness relationships growing up, and you have embedded in you a limbic, a neuronic imprint of what relationships are and how they work. Those are 4 relationships going on inside of you. Guess what? Your wife has 4 going on in her. Yes. And in any moment, she's kicking up one of these 4. So it's really 8 relationships going on at any time. And how do we manage all that? We understand, that's Bill's 14-year-old getting kicked up, and that's my wife's frustration with her dad. Oh, there it is. Bingo. Now, it doesn't solve in that moment when she throws a plate in my head and I want to throw her into the pool, all the anger. Right. It doesn't mean the reality of that energy being realized unconsciously isn't going to happen. It's going to happen every day. But then when you pull back going, oh, you watched your mom do X, Y, Z, and I watched my dad. So our archetypes, our relationship with relationships just got kicked up unconsciously. And there it is. And we get to talk about it and we get to evolve.
Yes. Carl
Jung's the greatest thinker of all time. And it all comes down, just like Joseph Campbell, just like all the great thinkers, is we got to go back to childhood and we got to know who we are in there and bring the child to the adult.
Yes.
In the Bible, Jesus says, only the children go to heaven. He's not talking about young kids. He's talking about the child heart. He's talking about Jess's 10-year-old heart opening up. And heaven is literally son of God or son of man. Son of God simply means the open heart attached to the eternal. I am a son of the eternal, G-O-D, or I'm rational and I'm part of son of man, which is a construct built by the rational mind. Yes. We're all part of the eternal. So it's really just opening up to that childhood vibration.
Brother, we're going to go deep on our next conversation with Campbell. And
Sorry, that was too long.
No, that was perfect. Actually, it was perfect in so many ways because it tees up the next conversation. You're within our time, like all this good stuff. Like, so I the one question I wanted to find out, just because I'm a little silly, was, do you have swords or knives behind you on top of the map?
That's a good question. I have a face mask from Africa, a wooden one, but those are tennis rackets. Those are old tennis rackets.
I couldn't see it because of the just handles that look like they're like laced. Oh, there, now I can see it. Okay.
My wife collects those are from the 70s and 80s.
I love it.
My wife collects them.
Do you play tennis or no?
I play tennis. Yeah, I wasn't very good. I was a kind of an average player, but we just love the tennis rackets.
I'm a pickleball enthusiast. Have you tried it?
I've heard it's big. I heard it's huge.
It's so funny. It's really cool. I love it. We have a foursome that goes out every Wednesday morning and we get after it. And it's really cool, man. It's competitive, it's playful, but brother, I am so thankful for our connection.
Ditto.
Thankful for you as a
you.
human being and the soul that you're, that you're implementing your journey into this world, and you're shining light. You're a warrior of light. You're authentic. You're all the things. And I'm just grateful that you're on the path with me, man. And I can't wait for the next conversation. But he is the amazing, the mighty, the powerful Bill O'Herron. I'm Jesse T. Catch us on next week's episode of the Jesse T Show.